Buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into the science behind how our brains learn English.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm so excited about this one.
Me too, me too.
We have got a really cool video to guide us today. And this is going to take us way beyond, your typical like tips and tricks for learning a language like flashcards and grammar drills.
Yeah, for sure.
We are going to be looking at how we can actually work with our brains to make learning English easier, more effective, and even enjoyable.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's really cool about this video is it really gets into like the nitty-gritty of what's happening up in your brain when you're trying to learn new words and grammar and how to pronounce things.
Yeah.
Like it shows you that it's not just about like willpower or how much you can memorize. It's really about like the biology and the emotional side of learning a language.
Yes. And sometimes when I'm like really struggling with a new grammar concept or just can't seem to remember a word no matter how many times I try, I kind of start to think like, is my brain even wired for this?
Totally.
Like, am I even capable?
Yeah.
But this video totally changed my perspective because, every time you learn something new in English, your brain actually rewards you with this little hit of dopamine.
It does, yeah, like a little high five.
It's a little high five, yeah, like, yes, you got it, keep going.
Right, keep going.
And that's not just some like fluffy feel-good thing. That's like actual neurochemistry happening.
That's the science.
That's science. Dopamine is a powerful motivator. So the more you experience those little wins, the more your brain is like, okay, I want to do more of this.
Yeah, it gets addicted to it.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, more of that, please.
Exactly. So that's why setting those like small, achievable goals is so important. Because every time you hit one, you're not just like checking it off a list.
Right.
You're actually reinforcing that pathway in your brain and saying, hey, English, good. Let's do more of this.
More.
And it's not just about the quick dopamine hits either.
No.
Over time, learning actually physically changes the structure of our brains through this process called protein synthesis. New connections form between our neurons. So it's like we're building little bridges between islands of information.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
So the more I practice, the stronger those bridges become.
Yes.
And the easier it is for information to travel from one part of my brain to another.
Exactly. Yeah, like think of it like building a road. The more you drive on it, the wider, the smoother it gets.
Right.
Same thing with your brain.
Yeah.
The more you use those new English pathways, the more ingrained they become.
I love it.
But here's the thing. Our brains aren't just these like passive storage units, just waiting to be filled up with facts. They crave context. They love stories. They want to see how things connect.
You know what? I have definitely noticed that.
Yeah.
Like I can spend hours trying to memorize vocabulary lists.
Right.
And it just feels like I'm pushing a boulder uphill.
Oh, yeah.
But if I hear those same words in a movie or a song, they just seem to stick.
They do, right.
Yeah.
Because your brain is making connections then. Instead of just like isolated bits of information, it's like it's weaving those words into this richer tapestry of meaning. It's linking them to emotions, to visuals, to a whole narrative.
I love that.
That's what the video calls context-based learning.
Okay.
And they give this great example of learning the word ambitious.
Okay.
Imagine trying to just memorize that word on its own. Ambitious.
Ambitious. Okay.
It's dry. It's abstract.
Kind of boring. It's like, okay, ambitious, got it. Now what?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But the video suggests instead of just like trying to cram that word into your brain, try learning it in a phrase like, she was an ambitious chef who dreamed of opening her own restaurant.
Ooh.
Right.
Okay.
Suddenly, that word is no longer just floating around in a vacuum. It's attached to an image, a story.
I could see it.
A feeling of aspiration.
Yeah.
It becomes much more memorable because it's connected to something meaningful.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And you know what? That reminds me of when I was learning phrasal verbs.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh, those were a nightmare.
They're tough.
Yeah, they just felt like random combinations of words. But once I started seeing them used in natural contexts, like in books and movies, they finally clicked.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's all about that connection.
It is. And that brings us to another point.
Okay.
The video makes.
Right.
It's not just what you learn. It's also how you learn. Have you ever tried the multisensory approach?
You know, I've always considered myself a visual learner. Like flashcards, diagrams, all that.
Yeah.
But this video really got me thinking about how I could be missing out by neglecting my other senses.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much more effectively our brains learn when we engage multiple senses at the same time.
Okay.
So let's take the word meticulous, for example.
All right. Meticulous.
You can see it written down. You can hear it pronounced. But imagine also drawing a picture of someone being meticulous.
Like organizing their desk or something?
Yeah, exactly. Organizing their desk. Or maybe you could even like act out some meticulous actions.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Okay. It's like creating a symphony of input for your brain.
I love that.
Hitting it from all angles.
All right. So we're feeding our brains information, making connections, building these neural roads.
Yeah.
But even the most ambitious learner needs to take breaks, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even brains need a breather. And that's where the video brings in this concept of time blocking and something called the Pomodoro technique.
Ooh, the Pomodoro technique.
Yes.
I've heard of that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Isn't that all about like 25-minute work sprints?
Yes.
Followed by short breaks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. It's about working with your brain's natural rhythms instead of against them. The video even gives us like a sample schedule.
Oh, nice.
25 minutes for vocabulary.
Okay.
5-minute break. 25 minutes for grammar. Another break, then 25 minutes for listening practice, and then you finish it all off with a longer 15-minute break.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like interval training for your brain.
I love that, yes.
Short bursts of intense focus, followed by these recovery periods to prevent burnout.
Yeah.
I like it.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Remember that emotion memory connection we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out you can actually hack that system to make your learning even more powerful.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Right.
Tell me more.
It's all about intentionally creating emotional links to the words you're learning.
Okay, so instead of just trying to like cram definitions into my head, I should be trying to create like a feeling, a story, a personal connection to the word.
Exactly.
Okay.
For example, think about the word perseverance.
Perseverance.
It might be kind of a dry word on its own.
Yeah.
But what if you linked it to your own personal journey of learning English? Think about the challenges you've overcome, the times you wanted to give up, but you kept going.
Yeah.
Suddenly that word has a whole new depth of meaning.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or let's take a word like serendipity.
Okay, serendipity.
Instead of just memorizing the definition, try connecting it to a time when you experienced some like happy, unexpected surprise.
You know what? That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered why I can remember song lyrics so easily.
Right.
Even if I haven't heard a song in years, it's because they're usually tied to like a specific memory or feeling or a moment in time.
Yeah.
So I'm basically doing the same thing with English words now, but just doing it intentionally.
Exactly. You got it.
All right, cool.
You're tapping into your brain's natural ability to remember things that are emotionally charged. And by doing it consciously, you can make those new words stick so much better.
I love it.
Yeah. And how about a word like melancholy?
Melancholy.
Might be hard to remember on its own, right?
Yeah, kind of.
But what if you link it to a memory of a rainy day?
Oh, okay.
You know, that feeling of quiet reflection, a touch of sadness. It suddenly becomes much more tangible and memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're making connections, we're tapping into emotions. We're basically becoming best friends with our brains.
Yes.
But isn't language ultimately about communication, about connecting with other people?
It is, and that's exactly where the video takes us next.
Okay.
It dives into the social nature of language and how our brains actually light up differently when we're engaged in real conversations.
Oh, wow.
Compared to when we're just studying alone.
That makes sense.
Right,
Yeah.
because language evolved as a tool for social interaction, for sharing ideas and experiences.
Right, it's not just about decoding words on a page.
No.
It's about navigating this complex social landscape.
It is.
Yeah.
When we're in a real conversation, we're not just processing words.
Right.
We're also interpreting facial expressions, reading body language, picking up on those subtle emotional cues.
A lot to juggle.
It is. It's a whole different level of brain engagement.
Okay, so, which is why the video emphasizes
yes.
that no matter how much you study on your own, nothing can replace the experience of using English in real conversations.
That's right. Nothing.
Like, it's like taking all those skills you've been honing and putting them to the test in like a live fire exercise.
I love that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And even if you're not at a conversational level yet, every interaction you have, whether it's ordering a coffee or asking for directions, or even just exchanging greetings, it all helps build those social language pathways in your brain.
So even those seemingly small interactions are contributing to rewiring my brain for English.
They are. It's all part of the process.
That's amazing.
It is. But what about when we need to like boost our memory power?
Okay.
You know, we've talked about connections and emotions, but are there any specific techniques we can use to really make those new words stick?
I'm glad you asked, because the video actually introduces some fascinating advanced memory techniques.
Oh, okay. Let's hear.
We're talking about the story chain method.
Okay.
And the mind map method. And I think these are really going to help us out.
Awesome.
So the story chain method, as the name suggests, is all about weaving the words you need to remember into a short, memorable story.
Oh, I like that.
So for example, if you were trying to remember the words abundant, pristine, and ethereal, you could create a story about hiking through an abundant forest and discovering a pristine lake. Reflecting the ethereal moonlight.
Oh, beautiful.
Wow.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. So the story provides a framework for those words, making them easier to recall.
Right.
And then we have the mind map method, which is all about visual organization.
Love it.
This is for all our visual learners out there.
Yes.
So you start with a central theme and branch out to related vocabulary.
Okay.
So you might start with the word weather.
All right.
And then branch out to cloudy, overcast, gloomy, melancholy.
I see it. Yeah, like a little, it's like a little web. Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps you see how those different concepts relate to each other.
Totally.
Yeah. So you can experiment with both of those and see what works best for you.
Love it.
But there is one more ingredient.
Okay.
That is absolutely crucial for solidifying all that hard work.
Let me guess. Sleep.
You know it.
Of course.
It's not just about resting your body.
Right.
It's about giving your brain the time it needs to process and consolidate everything you've learned. I have to admit, I love a good night's sleep.
Me too.
But I never really thought about it as like an essential part of my language learning routine.
Well, get ready to have your mind blown.
Okay.
Because this video explains exactly why sleep is so crucial for turning those like fleeting bits of English you encounter into solid, lasting knowledge.
All right. I'm all ears.
Okay, good.
Let's unpack the sleep-language connection.
Let's do it. It turns out our brains are anything but inactive when we're asleep. Yeah, they're actually busy like organizing and strengthening all those new neural connections we built during the day.
So like my brain is doing some serious overtime while I'm catching those Z's?
Pretty much, yeah. Think of it like a nightly backup and optimization process.
Okay.
Your brain is taking all that new English input you've been working on and integrating it into your existing knowledge base.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes after like a long study session, I feel a little overloaded.
Right.
But then after a good night's sleep, things just seem to click.
Exactly. It's like your brain has had the time to like sort through everything, make sense of it all.
Okay, so what's actually happening during those different stages of sleep?
Okay, so during light sleep, your brain is basically reviewing the day's material, like flipping through flashcards.
Like a quick refresh before the real work begins?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then when you drift into deeper sleep, those neural connections get strengthened. So it's like hitting the save button on all that hard work you've been doing.
So I need to make sure I'm hitting that save button regularly.
Yes, absolutely. Sleep is crucial.
Okay, what about REM sleep?
REM sleep. That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because that's when your brain starts practicing language.
Really?
Yeah, but in these like dreamlike scenarios.
No way. So like my brain is staging its own little English play while I'm sleeping.
Not quite like watching a movie.
Oh, yeah.
But it is like running simulations, trying out those new words and grammar patterns.
So basically a good night's sleep is like hitting the save button on all that hard work.
Yes, I love that. The save button analogy is perfect.
So we need to make sure we're hitting save.
Definitely.
Okay, so the video even says that getting enough sleep can actually improve your fluency.
It can, yeah, because it's not just about remembering the words. It's also about being able to access them easily and use them naturally when you're speaking.
Yeah, like on the fly.
Exactly, in real time.
That makes sense, because I definitely feel like I speak more smoothly and confidently after a good night's rest.
Of course, it's like your brain has had the time to organize everything and make these connections stronger.
Right, like everything's just flowing better.
Exactly.
So sleep is like the glue that holds it all together.
It is the glue.
But of course, fluency isn't just about vocabulary and grammar.
No,
It's also about pronunciation.
Yes, pronunciation. That can be a tricky one.
I think it's one of the most intimidating parts for a lot of language learners.
I agree. It can feel like you're training your tongue to do these crazy new things.
Yeah, like it's never done that before.
Totally.
Right.
But this video has a really helpful perspective on pronunciation.
Okay.
It says it's not just about training your mouth to make the new sounds. It's also about training your brain to recognize and reproduce them.
So it's like a two-way street.
It is, yeah. Our brains need to catch up with our mouths.
Right. So our brains are involved too, not just our tongues.
Absolutely. And it's especially tricky because we need to learn these subtle differences between sounds that might not even exist in our native language.
You know, there are some English sounds that I just cannot get.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the tho sound.
Oh, yeah. Thus is a tough one.
I still struggle with that.
Well, the video has this really cool tip.
Okay.
Try feeling your throat when you make the th sound compared to this.
Okay.
Can you feel the difference?
I am actually feeling it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like one is a gentle breeze and the other is a bit more forceful.
Exactly. There's a subtle difference in how you engage your vocal cords.
Okay.
And our brains need to be able to hear those nuances
Right.
to pronounce them correctly.
So my brain needs to get on board with this business.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So what can we do to train our brains and our mouths for better pronunciation?
Well, the video recommends a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing, what is that?
Okay, so you choose a short English video clip, maybe a scene from a movie or a news segment, something like that.
Okay.
And you listen to it once just to get the gist.
All right. So I'm just listening for comprehension.
Yeah, exactly. And then you listen again.
Okay.
But this time you speak along with the speaker.
Oh, interesting.
And you're trying to match not just the words, but the rhythm and the intonation too.
So like I'm becoming the speaker's shadow.
Yes.
Mimicking everything they do.
Their every vocal inflection, yeah.
That sounds fun, actually.
It is. It's a challenging but fun.
And you know what would be really cool?
What's that?
Is if you recorded yourself while you're doing it.
Oh, yeah. That's actually what the video recommends.
Oh, really?
That way you can hear how you sound, compare yourself to the original, and see where you need to improve.
Oh, I like that.
It's like having your own pronunciation coach.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right in your pocket.
I'm definitely going to try that.
Awesome.
But, you know, sometimes I feel like learning a language is about so much more than just the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about like immersing yourself in a whole new culture.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's when it gets really exciting.
It's a whole new way of thinking.
Exactly. And that's where the video takes things to a whole new level.
Okay.
It talks about cultural immersion as nothing short of rewiring your brain.
Rewiring my brain, that sounds intense.
It is intense, but in a really good way.
Okay.
It's not just about acquiring vocabulary and grammar. It's about absorbing new ways of thinking and seeing the world.
Oh, wow. So it's like you're not just learning a new language.
Right.
You're gaining a whole new perspective.
Exactly. It's like stepping into a different pair of shoes and seeing the world through a whole new lens.
I like that.
Yeah, the video actually uses a really great analogy to describe this.
Okay, I'm listening.
They compare the brain to a city.
Okay, a city.
Learning individual words and grammar rules is like building separate houses.
So it's like creating the basic infrastructure?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But cultural immersion is like creating entire neighborhoods.
Oh, wow.
You've got those interconnected streets, a vibrant community.
It's not just isolated buildings anymore.
Exactly. It all comes together.
Right. You start to understand like the humor, the nuances, the unspoken rules.
Cultural context.
Yeah. It's like you're not just visiting anymore.
Right.
You're actually becoming a resident.
Exactly. I love that. You're becoming a resident.
And the video mentions that people who immerse themselves in English culture often start to experience these really interesting changes.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
They might start dreaming in English.
Wow.
Understanding jokes without needing a translation.
That's so cool.
And even developing different personality traits.
Really?
Yeah.
Different personality traits.
When they speak English.
That's fascinating.
It's like language and culture are so intertwined that they actually shape who we are.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it highlights how language learning is about so much more than just acquiring knowledge. It's about expanding your horizons.
Yeah.
And even discovering new parts of yourself.
Discovering new parts of yourself. I love that.
But let's be honest here.
Okay.
Even with all this fascinating brain science and these cool techniques we've talked about, staying motivated on this language learning journey can be tough.
It can be. Motivation can be a roller coaster.
You're telling me?
Yeah.
Some days I wake up feeling like I can conquer the world. Other days I can barely muster the energy to conjugate a verb.
I think we've all been there.
Right.
But the good news is this video gives us some really helpful insights into how our brains handle motivation. We can actually use that knowledge to keep ourselves on track.
Okay, I like where this is going. What's the secret?
Well, it starts with understanding that our brains have this built-in reward system, and we can actually use it to our advantage. Remember that dopamine rush we talked about earlier? Yeah.
Well, setting small, achievable goals can trigger those dopamine releases. And that fuels our motivation.
So it's like I'm hacking my brain's reward system to make learning feel good.
You're hacking the system.
I'm a hacker.
You are a brain hacker.
Awesome.
And it's all about creating that positive feedback loop.
Right.
Where learning becomes enjoyable and sustainable instead of a chore.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Sustainable, enjoyable learning.
Exactly.
But even with the best of intentions, we all hit those slumps.
Yeah, we do.
Those motivation dips, they're inevitable, right?
They are. They're a normal part of the process.
Okay, so how do we deal with them?
Well, the video talks about these different phases of motivation.
Okay.
And understanding these phases can be really helpful.
Right, what are the phases?
So we have the initiation phase, the valley phase, and the breakthrough phase.
Okay, break those down for me.
Okay, so the initiation phase is that initial excitement.
Right, like when you first start learning. Exactly, it's like, I'm going to learn English and it's going to be amazing.
Yes, all the possibilities are ahead of you.
It's a great feeling.
It is, but then what happens?
Well, as with anything new, that initial enthusiasm tends to fade.
Yeah.
And we enter the valley phase.
The valley phase, that sounds ominous.
It can be tough.
Yeah.
This is where progress can feel slow.
Right.
You might start questioning if it's all worth it.
Ugh, the dreaded valley phase.
Yeah, you know, it's like hitting a wall.
You're putting in the work, but not seeing the results you hoped for.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's important to remember this is normal.
Okay, so we all go through it.
We all do, everyone.
Right, so how do we navigate this treacherous valley phase?
Well, the key is to keep those dopamine hits coming.
Okay, keep the good times rolling.
Exactly. Break your larger goals down into smaller, more manageable chunks. And celebrate every little victory along the way.
So instead of focusing on the fact that I'm not fluent yet, I should celebrate the fact that I learned 5 new phrasal verbs this week.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Or that you had a short conversation with your neighbor in English.
Right. Focus on the small wins.
Exactly. Because each small win tells your brain, hey, you're on the right track. Keep going.
Okay. I like it. So what happens after the valley phase?
Well, if you keep pushing through, you'll reach the breakthrough phase.
Okay.
And this is where things really start to click.
Okay.
You experience that feeling of fluency.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
It's a great feeling. It's like reaching the summit after a long climb.
Yeah.
That view is incredible.
And all the hard work was worth it.
Exactly. And the best part is...
What's that?
Once you've experienced that breakthrough, you know you can do it again.
You know you have what it takes.
Exactly. You've proven it to yourself.
That's so inspiring.
It is. It's amazing what our brains are capable of.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that even when things feel really tough, our brains are capable of these incredible things.
Incredible things. And speaking of incredible things, let's not forget about the amazing machine that's making all of this possible.
Oh, yeah. Our brains.
Our brains, yes.
We spend all this time talking about techniques and strategies.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's our brains that are doing the heavy lifting.
It is. The video actually dives into the technical side of how our brains process language.
Okay.
Comparing it to like a supercomputer.
Wow.
running all these programs at the same time.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
It is. So much is happening behind the scenes.
So what's actually happening in my brain when I hear an English sentence?
Okay, so first, those sound waves get processed in your auditory cortex.
Okay, auditory cortex.
Then the words are identified in Wernicke's area.
Wernicke's area, got it.
Then the grammar gets analyzed in Broca's area.
Okay.
The meaning is connected in the temporal lobe. And then finally, responses are prepared in the motor cortex.
Wow, that's a lot of steps.
It is, and all of that happens in milliseconds.
Milliseconds, that's incredible.
It's amazing how efficient our brains are.
It really is.
And it makes you realize how adaptable and powerful they are.
Yeah, we're literally rewiring our brains.
We are.
Every time we learn something new in English.
It's true, and that's what makes it such a fascinating and rewarding journey.
Absolutely, but all this talk about brain science and neural pathways is great, but how do we actually put it all into practice?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you asked, because the video doesn't just leave us hanging with all this theory.
Okay, good.
It actually gives us some really concrete takeaways that we can apply to our own English learning.
All right, so we can take action.
Yes, and it all starts with recognizing that we can actually work with our brains instead of against them.
So our brains are our friends, not our enemies.
Exactly. They are our most powerful asset.
And the first step is to prioritize sleep.
Yes, prioritize sleep.
We talked about why it's so important.
We did. It's crucial for memory consolidation and overall brain function.
So make sure you're getting those 7-8 hours every night.
Yes, those Z's are important.
Got it. Put down the flashcards an hour before bed.
Yes, exactly.
Step away from the language learning apps.
Give your brain a rest.
Okay, what else?
And remember, pronunciation is about training both your mouth and your brain. So try out that shadowing technique we talked about.
Okay, the shadowing, I'm going to try it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's really effective for improving your accent and fluency.
Awesome.
And don't forget about the power of cultural immersion.
Right. Get out there and experience English in the real world.
Exactly. Watch movies, listen to music, chat with native speakers online.
Make English a part of your life.
Yeah, not just a subject you study.
I like that.
And finally, remember that motivation is a journey, not a destination.
Okay, a journey?
There will be ups and downs.
The roller coaster.
But by understanding how your brain works,
right,
and by setting achievable goals, you can make learning English a much more enjoyable and sustainable experience.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive.
It has. It's been fun.
And I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how my brain learns.
Me too.
And I'm excited to put all these insights into practice.
Me too. It's like we've been given the user manual for our brains.
Exactly, the user manual.
And now we know how to use it.
That's powerful.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what stands out to you the most from all this brain science?
Ooh, that's a good question.
What's one thing you're going to try differently in your English practice?
That's a tough one. There's so much good stuff in here.
I know, right? It's hard to pick just one.
But I think for me, what really stands out is that idea of like creating those emotional connections to new words.
Yeah, I like that one.
You know, I've always kind of been a storytelling nerd. So I love the idea of like weaving new vocabulary into these little stories.
Right.
Or connecting them to personal memories.
Yeah, make it your own.
Yeah, I think it'll just make learning so much more engaging and memorable for me.
I think so too.
What about you? What are you going to try differently?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is really that emphasis on the social brain.
Okay.
And how powerful those real conversations are. It's a good reminder that language isn't just about memorizing rules and vocab.
Right.
It's about connecting with other people.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to make a conscious effort to actually like seek out more opportunities to use English in real life situations.
I love that.
Even if it's just like a quick chat with a neighbor or, you know, ordering my coffee in English.
It's those little things that add up.
They do. It's so easy to get caught up in like the solo study grind. But, you know, there's really no substitute for actually putting your skills to use.
Absolutely. Get out there and practice.
Exactly. And those conversations don't have to be perfect.
Right. Progress over perfection.
Exactly. It's all about progress, not perfection.
I think sometimes we get so hung up on speaking perfectly.
Oh, yeah?
That we're afraid to even open our mouths.
I know. It's like we're waiting for this magical moment when we suddenly become fluent.
Right. Like it's just going to happen overnight.
Yeah. But the truth is, Fluency comes from practice, from making mistakes and learning from them.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. And I think this deep dive has really shown us that the journey can be so rewarding.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not just learning a new language, we're learning about ourselves.
Right.
How our brains work.
Yeah, it's like we've been given a user manual.
A user manual for our brains. I love that.
Yeah. And now we know how to use it.
That's powerful stuff.
It is. So to all our listeners out there, keep those brains buzzing.
Keep those connections firing.
And never underestimate that incredible power of your mind.
Yes. Your mind can do amazing things.
To learn and grow.
Happy learning, everyone.